Welcome to my story. This happened a couple of years ago during my last semester of college. I was 22, and my weekends were often spent exploring abandoned places with my friends, Lucas, Eric, and Sean. It wasn't just a hobby, it was a thrill. We'd find old factories, forgotten train stations, or desolate mansions, armed with flashlights and cameras to document our adventures. But this time was different. Lucas found an online forum about urban exploration, and someone had shared the location of a place called the Crimson Maze. It was an abandoned experimental facility in the middle of nowhere, supposedly a prototype for some high-security containment project. The details were vague, but the pictures looked legit. Cracked walls, rusted metal doors, and long, dim hallways. The post claimed the government shut it down years ago due to unforeseen incidents. That alone should have been a red flag, but we were too intrigued to care. The plan was simple: drive out there, explore the maze, and maybe shoot some footage for our YouTube channel. It was Lucas, Eric, Sean, and me. We left on a chilly Friday evening, excited and oblivious to what lay ahead. The facility was deep in the woods, hidden behind overgrown foliage. The gate was locked, but the chain had rusted enough for us to break through easily. Beyond it was a path leading to a steel door, half-hinged and groaning in the wind. Inside, the air was damp and cold, and the faint smell of decay hit us immediately. Our flashlights flickered to life, illuminating the graffiti-covered walls and peeling paint. The first few rooms were exactly what we expected. Empty offices, smashed monitors, and filing cabinets spilling yellowed papers. Then we found the entrance to the maze. It was a long, narrow corridor marked by a faded sign: "Authorized personnel only. Enter at your own risk." Lucas laughed nervously. "That's definitely inviting." The corridor led us into the heart of the facility. The layout was bizarre, twisting hallways that all looked the same, with random doors leading to dead ends or rooms filled with nothing but debris. The walls were lined with mirrors, reflecting our flashlights and creating an illusion of infinite passageways. It didn't take long for things to feel wrong. The first sign was the temperature. It was freezing, far colder than it should have been, even for winter. Our breath fogged up the mirrors, and Sean joked about ghosts watching us. None of us laughed. Then there was the sound, a faint humming like machinery buried deep within the walls. It grew louder as we ventured further, becoming almost rhythmic, like a pulse. "Is this place still powered?" Eric asked, his voice trembling. "Impossible," Lucas replied. "It's been abandoned for decades." But the deeper we went, the more alive the place seemed. The mirrors started playing tricks on us, showing reflections that didn't match our movements. At first it was subtle. I'd raise my flashlight, and my reflection would lag a second behind. Then it became undeniable. In one mirror, Eric's reflection wasn't holding a flashlight at all. Instead, it clutched something long and jagged, like a shard of glass. "Guys, we need to leave," I said, my voice shaking. Lucas dismissed it. "It's just an optical illusion. Don't psych yourself out." But then we heard it, a scream. It echoed down the hall, sharp and agonizing, cutting through the air like a knife. We froze, our flashlights shaking as we scanned the hallway. "That wasn't one of us, right?" Sean whispered. Before anyone could answer, the mirrors began to distort. The reflections twisted, warping our faces into grotesque shapes. One by one, they started to turn toward us, even as we stood still. My reflection stared at me with hollow eyes, its mouth curling into a wide, unnatural grin. "Run," I managed to choke out. We bolted, crashing through the maze, desperately trying to find the exit. But the halls seemed to shift around us, the mirrors multiplying and closing in. The humming grew louder, now accompanied by whispers in a language none of us recognized. Eric was the first to fall. He tripped, and when we turned to help him, he was staring into one of the mirrors. His reflection reached out, grabbing him by the throat. We pulled him away, but his face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. "What happened?" I shouted, shaking him. "It's watching," he stammered. "It's inside the mirrors." We dragged Eric with us, the whispers now a deafening chorus. Sean was the next to stop. He froze in place, staring at his reflection, which had started to move independently. Before we could pull him away, his body went limp, collapsing to the floor. Lucas and I were the only ones left. We carried Eric, struggling to navigate the maze as the walls seemed to close in. The mirrors no longer reflected us. They showed something else entirely. Shadowy figures with glowing eyes clawing at the glass, desperate to break through. Finally, we found the steel door we'd entered through. With every ounce of strength, we pushed it open and stumbled into the freezing night air. Eric was barely conscious, and Sean didn't wake up until we were halfway back to the car. Neither of them could explain what they'd seen, but they were both haunted by it for weeks. We never went back, and the footage we'd captured was too distorted to make sense of. The humming, the whispers, and the twisted reflections still haunt my dreams. I've learned since then that the Crimson Maze was part of an experiment in psychological manipulation. They used mirrors to disorient test subjects and push their minds to the brink. But something went wrong, something they couldn't control. Whatever we encountered that night wasn't human, and it's still there, waiting for its next victims.